Hello, my lovelies. It is time for my 2023 end of year stats. So stay tuned. So I wanted to go over my 2023 stats, kind of see how they compared with my end of year stats for 2022 and what I'm thinking 2024 might look like. So my goal was to read 120 books in 2023, and I definitely did that. I read 170 books. Last year my goal was exactly the same, and I read like 143. So I read a lot this year. I expect 2024 is going to be a significantly lower number. I actually have made a much lower goal because I know I'm going to be doing a lot of traveling, and I'm probably not going to read nearly as much. So this year I read 65,024 pages. That's up from 51,449 last year. So that breaks down to 5,422.83 pages per month, 1,251.42 pages per week, and 178.28 pages per day, which is just absurd to me because I know that there have been many days where I've read nothing at all. So to have averaged that much every single day, like the days that I was reading. Yeah, which it blows my mind. So the shortest book typically in the past couple of years, they've been literally in like the teens and 20s. Though I guess technically there is one book that I read that didn't go on my Goodreads, so it didn't actually count. And that was Mother Maiden Crone. It was actually a little zine, and it wasn't on Goodreads or anything. And it was only 7 pages. But what is on Goodreads, my shortest book this year was Under One Roof by Ali Hazelwood, and that was 112 pages. Whereas last year, I think my shortest book was like 16 pages. And then my longest book this year was actually quite a bit shorter than my longest book last year. My longest book was Keeper of the Lost Cities, Flashback by Shannon Messenger, and it was 845 pages, where the longest book I read last year was Queen of Air and Darkness by Cassandra Clare, and that was 912 pages. And then the average book length that I read this year was 382 pages, which is up from last year where I had 359 pages. My average rating stayed the same this year as it was last year, but I did my rating slightly different. So last year, anytime I DNF something, it got 1 star. And I had a few 1 stars last year. I can't remember, like 7, I think. But then this year I didn't do that. So I marked it, but I didn't mark it, like I didn't rate it. If I DNF'd it, I just marked it as read or unhauled or whatever. But I didn't end up actually giving it a rating, so it got 0 stars. Just no rating. So I think that affected my overall rating average this year. So my average was still 4 stars this year. So I did have a really good reading year. And I'll get into how many stars I gave out for all the different levels later. Okay, so the most popular book that I read was It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. That book has been shelved by 5,085,794 people, and it has over 3 million ratings with a 4.19 rating. I gave it 5 stars. The least popular, or the least shelved book that I read this year was I Hate Fairyland Volume 5, Gert's Inferno by Scotty Young. This is only shelved 538 times, and it only has 303 ratings, but it does have a 4.14 overall. And I gave it 5 stars because freaking love that series. You will not be surprised by the highest rated book on Goodreads that I read, which was Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. It has a 4.6 on Goodreads, and I gave it 5 stars. I had a really good reading year. My first book that I reviewed in 2023 was The Breakup Book Club by Wendy Wax, and I gave that one 4 stars. It was so cute. The last book that I reviewed, which it actually doesn't show up on my reading stats or whatever on Goodreads, I guess because I actually didn't put it in until after 2023 was over. But that was Find Him Where You Left Him Dead by Kristen Simmons, and I gave that one 4 stars. It was really good as well. I actually finished that one on December 31st. Okay, so now let's get into my overall ratings for the year. So this year I had 8 no stars. Those are ones that I started reading and then DNF'd because for one reason or another, they weren't for me. There were probably a couple of them in there that I could have given 1 stars to because they were not good, what I did read of them, but I just didn't rate them at all. Last year, I only had 1 that I didn't rate. So because of that, I didn't end up giving any 1 stars this year, whereas last year I gave 2 1 stars. And because I was actually more open to DNFing this year than I was last year I had more 2 stars than this year because for me, the way I was doing it is if I DNF'd it, it got 1 star. If I read it all the way through but didn't really like it, it got 2 stars because I managed to get all the way through it. And so I had more 2 stars. But this year, if I didn't enjoy it, I just DNF'd it and then those got no stars. So this year I only had 3 2 stars, whereas last year I had 7. This year I had 41 3 stars, whereas last year I had only 30. And then I had 68 4 stars versus last year's 55. And then I had 49 5-star reads, whereas last year I had 47. So I had a really, really good reading year. And I think part of that comes in with the whole, if I'm not enjoying it, I DNF it. And then I can't remember which order these videos are coming up. I have already filmed my top 10 of 2023. But I will tell you that in my top 10, I had 2 graphic novels, whereas last year I also had 2 graphic novels. Last year I had 2 middle grades, and this year I have no middle grades on my top 10. However, I do have 1 classic on my top 10. I had 5 YA last year, and this year I only have 2 YA on my top 10. And then last year I had 2 adults on my top 10, and this year I have 5. So that kind of flipped around there, and I read a lot more adult this year and really enjoyed them. Oh, and I actually skipped one of my stats. The lowest rated book that I read on Goodreads was Sublime by Christina Lauren. It had a 3.16 rating, and I gave it 3 stars, so I kind of ended up going with what everybody else had thought. The ending got me on that one. The ending is totally what brought it down to 3 stars. But those are all of my stats for all of 2023. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give me a big thumbs up. If you would like to see more videos like this, click that subscribe button down below. And until next time, remember to always be completely you. Bye.